There's a lot of debate over what is training up a child. And so the question, what is training up a child? In Proverbs, it says, if we train up a child on the way that he should go, that he will hold to that path, that he won't depart from that if we approach it properly. The reason we have to train up a child is because we are all born dead in trespasses and sins. All of us are natural human beings before. We're all born naturally before we're born of the Spirit. We're not born of the Spirit until we make the decision to be born of the Spirit. And before we are born of the Spirit, we are not capable of being righteous. So no one has to teach their child to lie. No one has to teach their child to steal. No one has to teach their child to be selfish. No one has to teach their child to be, self-focused. That's what comes natural to us. No one has to teach a child to eat what they like when they first put it in their mouth. We have to teach them how to eat the things that they don't like the first time they put it in their mouth, which far outnumber the things that they do like. So training up a child is very similar. God draws a pattern between being born of the Spirit and born of water, or the natural birth and the spiritual birth. And it's a connection in that when we're born naturally, we're babies, and we require certain things that are essential for babies. And we're not capable of a lot of things that we will be as we grow. Same thing, when we're born spiritually, we are babies. We're not capable of things we will be later, and we have certain needs. And so I just put together this little thing, kind of breaking this down into some stages. So, and we're going to talk completely about natural, but understand that it applies also for making disciples in the spiritual growth. The first stage of training a child is called the unconditional love stage. And this begins at birth. Actually begins before birth, because unconditional love is while they're still even in the tummy. But it goes up to about 18 months. Now, these ages that I'm listing here, these are a kind of general about areas. It's like, you lose your first tooth when you're 6. Well, sort of, kind of, maybe. It's going to be in that area. Some kids lose a tooth at 4. Some kids lose their first tooth at 8. But generally speaking, it's about 6. So, same thing, 0 to 18 months, unconditional love. In this period, they can do nothing wrong. No matter what mess they make, no matter how often they make it, no matter how much noise they make, no matter what an inconvenience it is, no matter what they throw on the floor, no matter what they spit up, no matter. They can do nothing wrong. They get nothing but love and acceptance and approval and love and just complete, total acceptance. So in this stage, in this window, they learn they're loved when they make a mess. They're loved when they don't make a mess. They're loved when they're quiet. They love when they're loud. They're loved when they're asleep. They're loved when they're awake. They're loved when they're sick. They're loved when they're well. They're loved when they're happy. They're loved when they're sad. They learn they are unconditionally loved. Incredibly important. We must have it. There is no correction that comes in this stage. There is only redirection. If they're trying to pull a particular thing down and break it, you readjust, move, offer them something else. But there's no correction because they can't do anything wrong. Then, as you let God lead you and work in your heart, you'll see when it's time, when yours understands, is capable to understand that there's a yes and a no. They should respond to the no. Then this is called the submission stage. And it lasts from somewhere in the 18-month range to the 4 years range, 4 to 5. Again, these are general areas. And this stage, it's incredibly important, really, really important. The number one chief lesson that the child is learning in this stage is submission. They've learned unconditional love, and now they have to learn to submit. And if you think about it, submission is a concept that serves us in all of our life. If we're going to have a job, we're going to have to submit to a boss. If we're going to be on a team, we're going to have to submit to the needs of the team. If we're going to be in any kind of personal relationship, we're going to have to recognize, submit to the needs of the other in that relationship. If we're going to be in a marriage, if we're going to be a parent, anything in our life we're going to do. Even if you're going to be a business and you're going to be a business owner, run a business, and you don't have a boss, you're the boss. Well, guess what you have? You have clients or customers. And guess what? You're going to have to submit to their needs in order to be effective in business. So this is a lesson that is incredibly important, and we're we're not doing our kids any favor by not teaching them, but this is not a lesson that they learn quietly. Now, here's the thing. They don't learn it quietly between 18 months and 4, but that's far quieter than them trying to learn it when they're 20. They will not learn it quietly at any time, but the noise that gets made by adolescents when they haven't learned submission is far worse and far more dangerous than the noise that gets made by a 2 to 4 year old when they're learning submission. And basically what submission is, you don't get to do what you want to do, you have to do what you're told to do. And we want to be cautious in this. We want to recognize that we're not putting them in a straitjacket, so we want to, determine for sure what the goal is. And I'll just give you just a great example. Let's say that your 2-year-old or whatever has been not sharing toys or whatever, and then you say, okay, you're going to have to go sit in this chair for 3 minutes on a timeout, and then he doesn't want to sit in the chair. Well, now you've said he has to sit in the chair. So now what we have to do is the gentlest possible way we can, we have to enforce him sitting in that chair for 3 minutes. And absolutely no harsher than is absolutely necessary, but it has to be unconditional that he's going to sit in the chair. So don't give the command to sit in the chair unless you're willing to spend the next hour getting 3 minutes. And what's going to happen is when he discovers, like, you know what? I'm not going to win here. I can throw all the fit I want to, as long as I want. I'm going to have to sit in the chair for 3 minutes. I can do it right now, and this will be over in 3 minutes. Or I can fuss for an hour, and it won't be over for an hour, and I'm not going to be happy or comfortable during any of that time. But you, as the parent training up the child, have got to be willing to go through that difficult spot. This is an area, the train up a child is an area that sometimes leans more towards the father's strengths than the mother's. Because let me tell you what, for a 2-year-old who can't do what they want to do after they've just come out of the unconditional love, they can do no wrong, and now they're stepping into learning to submit, for them, it's traumatic, it's terrible, it's horrible. And it's really hard for mom sometimes to see them in such trauma, and it'd be better for mom to go, we'll teach this later. And the thing you got to hear, mom, is no. You think it's hard now. You try to teach this when they're 12. Then it's really hard. So again, stage 2 is submission. I can't overemphasize the importance of this stage, because if we don't have it, it really, really interferes with us being productive and effective in many areas. Then we have stage 3, which is instruction. Stage 3 starts 5-ish in the 5-year area. Now they've learned to submit. So now when you say come here, they come here. When you say you can't take this, they don't. They've learned to submit. So their submission is in place. So now they're ready for instruction. And the instruction stage is when we actually pour in teaching. And this lasts from whenever we come through the submission stage, they get the submission down. This lasts until adolescence. And pretty much everything we're going to teach about life principles. Now, there are details and their information, sure, we'll continue to teach after adolescence. But pretty much, all we're going to get in concerning values, important things in life, social platforms, worldviews, those kind of things, that's going to get in before adolescence. So that's our instruction stage. And now we've sewn everything in. We've stood with them. We've trained them, gradually releasing more and more responsibility. When we first start allowing them choices, they may have 4 pair of shoes, but we let them choose between 2 pair. When we're in the submission stage, pretty much we just say, put these shoes on. We're in the instruction stage, we go, okay, now here's choose from this 2 pair. So you still set boundaries, but they are learning to make choices. And then as they start to approach adolescence, now we should be at a place where we say, you go pick your clothes out for tomorrow. So they now have full control of the whole wardrobe, but you have guided them in boundaries with choices from no choices, submission, choices inside boundaries, extending the boundaries until they're making choices in the full array of what's available. And we want to be at that point kind of when they hit adolescence. Then in adolescence, we are just we're like the encourager, the coach, the cheerleader. We're just encouraging them in all the things that we train them in up until that point. And lovingly reminding, gently reminding, keep giving them to God. And when my daughters were teenagers, they thought I was freaking out on the outside, but really I was pretty calm on the outside compared to what was going on the inside. Because it's a scary time for a parent, because when they're 5 years old, you can just pick them up and hold them and cover them and protect them. When they get up to be teenagers and they get 16 and 17 and they're out, you can't just protect them like that anymore. And trusting God is not as easy all the time as we'd like for it to be. But in the midst of this, when you know that you've poured in all you can pour and you're getting the best opportunity you can give them, then those adolescent years become better for us. There's still a challenge. It's a challenge, but it's better. And then finally, what we're looking for, the final stage of training up a child is when they become a peer. When they come through adolescence into adulthood, and then we will always be a counselor. I would hope we will always be a cherished counselor, but now we're just one of their counselors. They have other people they have a relationship with, and we have actually entered into more of a peer fellowship and arrangement. And you've actually trained them up to function and to operate as productive, full-fledged adult members of society in the body of Christ. And that's the goal. The goal is not to make them dependent on me. The goal is not to make them do what I think they ought to do, but the goal is to train them up into everything God made them to be and give them every tool we're capable of giving them and equipping them so they can be just who God made them to be. So, train up a child.